car still. That's Let's Rock spoken backwards. Let's rock. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bomb Squad Podcast. I am your host and master of ceremony for the evening, Special Agent Joseph Henry Vrenick, calling all the way from Portland, Oregon. And today, I have with me...
I'm Austin Zwiebelman.
Oregon!
I'm Rein Conversey.
I'm Tim M. Sullivan.
And today we have a very special guest with us for the first time on the actual podcast.
My name is Toni Hopkins.
Yeah! We are very happy to have you here, Toni. We are talking about a very special film today, celebrating an anniversary, Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me, directed by the one and only David Lynch. But before we discuss the movie, we are going to discuss our thoughts and feelings on both Mr. David Lynch himself and the show Twin Peaks. So we are going to start with Mr. Rein Conversey. Please, give us your thoughts and opinions.
This is the question I had the hardest time trying to make notes for, because it's I don't know, what do I say? I watched his movies in college and I liked them a lot. I liked Twin Peaks a lot when I saw it in college. I don't know, I feel like that's most people's reaction to David Lynch.
What kind of beer do you like? Heineken? F*** that shit! Pabst Blue Ribbon!
He's probably one of my favorites. He's great. He's the best. The end. Please move on.
Very insightful, Mr. Conversey. Mr. Tim M. Sullivan, how about you? What are your thoughts?
So I'm pretty sure the first David Lynch thing I watched was Eraserhead, and I don't think I knew that it was a David Lynch thing. I think I just watched because I was 17 or 18 and I saw a list of up movies online, and that was somewhere right between Un Chien Andalou and Martyrs or something.
I've seen this neighborhood change from pastures to the hellhole it is now. I'd put every damn pipe in this neighborhood.
Yeah, Dale.
Look at my knees.
But yeah, David Lynch, as a man, he's just an incredibly delightful person. I love every word that comes out of his mouth. Everything that I've seen of his, I've enjoyed. I think Twin Peaks I probably watched not too long after having watched Eraserhead, and that was kind of where I kind of started my journey into seeking out his works.
You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
I think Twin Peaks is really just one of the best ways to start with him, because you have the first two seasons, which are a little more made for sort of general audiences, because you had to put it on ABC, but it still has a lot of his quirkiness in it and a lot of his signature trademarks as a director. And then The Return was just Lynch on acid.
This is the water, and this is the well. The horse is the white of the eyes, and dark within.
He just went nuts with that, and it's incredible, and I loved watching it as it aired. Yeah, that's about all I've got on this portion, so back to you, Joe.
Has he started yet? Unfortunately, we don't have time for him to restart, so we're just gonna have to pass it over to Miss Hopkins. Please, explain your thoughts.
I got into Twin Peaks probably April of last year, extremely recent. And I think before that, Blue Velvet was my first Lynch movie.
You know what a love letter is? It's a bullet from a f***ing gun. You receive a love letter from me, you're forever!
I got into Twin Peaks because my friend, who's in the grade above me, he introduced me to it. He was yeah, just start this and I think you'll like it. And I was okay. And then I got addicted to it.
Was Laura Palmer seeing you because she was addicted to cocaine?
From the first season all the way to The Return, I probably watched it within 3 months. And I'm wearing my Laura Palmer necklace. And I've got my Twin Peaks shirt on. I have so much just Twin Peaks things that I have either made or bought. It's crazy, but I love it so much. And I just love David Lynch so much. I watch his morning weather reports every single day.
Today I was thinking about Creedence Clearwater Revival.
It's a good way to start your day. It gives you a little something to wake up to. And yeah, it's just crazy how like creative he is and how the stuff that he is able to get across in such unique ways. So love him, love Twin Peaks, love all of it.
Excellent. And we're very happy to have the merch rep on the show. Finally, Mr. Zwiebelman, please elaborate on your thoughts on Mr. David Lynch and Twin Peaks.
My history with David Lynch started in high school, I think, with a girl named Molly. She knew more about art than almost any teenager in the desolate hick town I grew up in, and then one day she gifted me a DVD collection called The Short Films of David Lynch. And I was too young to understand why they were good, let alone important. And I have a couple more stories that go kind of the same way. Like my first times watching Eraserhead and Inland Empire, they reminded me of this object that I've had for ages, a copy of Finnegan's Wake on my bookshelf. Just these indecipherable works of art that I acknowledged were important but didn't personally understand. Then a couple of things happened. I learned more about how films were made in college, and I retired my old world view that you're just supposed to magically intuit meaning out of thin air by being smart in some vague sense. Blue Velvet was the first Lynch film that I really, really loved. Marijuana also helped. As for Twin Peaks, my friend Wade, who is what you'd call in film studies circles an absolute madman, he had me over one night and tried to show me a couple TV shows that he loved, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place and Twin Peaks. And I rejected both of them because they looked like cheap horse shit, and I was far too drunk to figure out the clever things either show was trying to do.
Welcome to Dark Place, Liz. My hand!
Years later, completely out of the blue, before even attempting to watch the show properly, I decided the time had come to understand Twin Peaks. So I watched video essay after video essay about the symbols and the mythology and the hidden meanings of the show. Who was Judy? What's Garmin Bosia? All of it. And last night was the first night that I actually sat down and watched any of it.
Well, damn. That is a very interesting fact there, Mr. Austin. All right, now it is my turn. So David Lynch. Yeah, I am not gonna do that. I am not doing that the entire time. So I have like this list of important directors for certain age brackets in my life. Like I would say an important director for me when I was a kid was like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg. Important filmmakers to me when I was a teenager, Quentin Tarantino. But I would say arguably as an adult, David Lynch is like top tier, one of the most important filmmakers for me, because something that Eli Roth describes in one of his history of horror interviews is that man captures both the subconscious and the unconscious so well. And that man has basically changed the way that we look at horror, the way that we do like sound in horror, just like the industrial noises that he brings to it and just the way that he makes it sound. It captures like a very dreamlike feel that makes specifically his movies just completely unsettling. It's kind of become like the kind of horror that I am like super into. I hate thanking this place, but I got to thank Webster University for having one of the film classes that I took was the films of David Lynch. It was a class that essentially just went through the entire filmography of David Lynch, minus Dune and The Straight Story, I believe.
I mean, you gotta cut the one that he straight up doesn't want to talk about.
This is true. That man does not want Dune on his resume. This so much so that his name's not even on the TV edit.
They tried and failed.
They tried and died.
Around that same time, and I had known that it was happening for a little while, but The Return happened, and that's when I discovered Twin Peaks, or at least that's when I started to watch it. Like, I'd known Twin Peaks was a thing, I just never got around to watching it. And it's one of my favorite shows ever. It's got all the fun quirkiness that David Lynch likes to sneak in for humor's sake. It's also one of the scariest damn shows ever made. Like, Jesus damn Christ, this aired on ABC. And I'm surprised that they let him get away with some of the stuff that happens in that show. Eventually, it led me to watch the movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which we are going to talk about today. Full disclaimer for everyone who has not seen the movie. If you have not seen the show and want to watch it, first off, spoilers. Secondly, if you want to watch the show first before you see the movie. Sure, it's a prequel, but man, oh man, there's spoilers in this prequel, and it ruins some of the mystery. So you have been warned.
I was worried about today because of the dream I told you about.
We're going to start our discussion, and who am I passing it off to? Tony looks eager to go. Let's start with Tony.
I will never forget the first time I saw this, because I had just finished the show and I'd heard that it was so much darker than like the show already was. And so I just remember feeling so emotionally drained after, but in like a way that made me feel not good per se, but like comforted in a way. Like at the end of it, the credits are rolling. I just sat there. Dead silence, the entire credits played, and then that's when I stood up. It was like, I couldn't move. I've only seen this last night. Rewatching it for this was the third time I had ever seen it. And it's in my top 4 on Letterboxd. But nice. I have to emotionally commit to it to like sit myself down and get through it. But yes. I do love it. I love it.
Do you think that if you were falling in space, you would slow down after a while or go faster and faster?
Faster and faster. And for a long time you wouldn't feel anything. And then you'd burst into fire. And the angels wouldn't help you because they've all gone away.
Yeah, it's not an easy set. Let's see, now that we've got Tony covered, Mr. Zwiebelman, we'll go to you next. What are your general thoughts on Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me?
It's kind of important to remember how much this movie was rejected when it came out in August of 1992. That weekend, Honeymoon in Vegas topped the box office. That year, the 3 highest grossing movies were Batman Returns, Lethal Weapon 3, and The Sister Act. Well, I actually thought that the opening segment with Chester Desmond, who rumor has it has his own MO.
Sam, you stick with Chet. He's got his own MO. Modus operandi.
Was funny and well-paced, even though I thought it would have been cooler if they kept in that scene of him beating Sheriff Cable's ass. That would have been great.
This one's coming from J. Edgar.
What happens after that is so emotionally troubling. It's kind of impressive how sad this movie is. I'm not sure all Twin Peaks fans agree on the 4.5-hour analysis that Twin Perfect did, especially when some dude who has never seen the show uses it to make deductions. But if David Lynch was using this movie as a way to like revive Laura Palmer from the state of being a murder victim, whose story was all like wrapped in a perfect bow with closure and everything, he really knocked that out of the park. Living Laura, before the pilot in this movie, may be one of the most like potent examples of a trauma victim who may have borderline personality disorder since like, I don't know, Girl Interrupted.
Your Laura disappeared. It's just me now.
She is in the craziest situation imaginable, and interpreting the ending as her finding out she was basically born just to become an important murder mystery on television, it's just heartbreaking in a way most movies couldn't even dream of being heartbreaking. Everyone did a really great job acting their parts, from the people who are playing it camp to playing it serious. The dialogue is weirdly realistic at times, even though it's like sprinkled with 50s slang and references to other media like shows and songs. Cheryl Lee deserves to be knighted for this performance. She tore my soul to pieces, about as hard as, like, say, Leaving Las Vegas or All That Jazz could ever hope to do. On the bright side, though, we live in a post-2014 universe and we have The Missing Pieces, a collection of deleted scenes edited together by David Lynch. The majority of these are either like moments of levity that would have stopped the film from emotionally destroying the viewers, or scenes involving like other members of Twin Peaks from the show who didn't affect Laura's life as much.
Laxative!
Check those out if you want a palate cleanser. They're so good that I'm actually on the team of knuckleheads who think that Fire Walk With Me would have been better as a 4-hour movie with all those scenes just kind of put back in there. And you can find the extended Blue Rose cut made by Agent Sam Stanley on archive.org if you want to see a fan edit along those lines. To conclude my overall thoughts, though, Fire Walk With Me is probably worth watching just because of how much it succeeds at being a well-acted psychological thriller. But if you've got the time to watch the whole show or a 4-hour video essay, those weird bits make the film something really transcendent if you understand what they mean in context.
Excellent. Mr. Conversi, you look eager to go as well. We're going to go with you next.
It's true, it's crazy when like a director's like spin-off movie is like the movie where he just fires on all cylinders and might be just like his best work. I don't know, I think really the magic about Lynch's stuff is kind of contrary to all, despite all like the video essays and like giant analyses trying to like pick apart the series on like an intellectual level. I think it's the thing that's like great about, I guess, the emotional aspect to his art, where like there is meaning you can take from it, but it's not a puzzle piece. It's there as much about like what you put into it and the emotions you get out of it and what it means to you. And with that being said, I do think this is like, it's definitely one of the saddest things, but also probably one of like the best films when it comes to like, cause you know, so many like films about killers, it's just so much about the killer. But this one, at least in my experience, what I've seen, this is probably one of the best when it comes to focusing on the victim well and really us being able to like get into their character and really show their humanity.
Oh my god! Oh my god! No, 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 no.
I think that also is shown like the way like some of the really intense scenes, because you know as far as the subject matter goes, the stuff that was just kind of alluded to in the show, they go like even closer to the edge of actually showing it. So stuff like, you know, I'm glad like Lynch sort of handles these very like grim subject matter with enough abstraction that it doesn't it's just like one of the more tasteful ways to do it, and it still gets the emotion across without, I don't know. Just a few random things that I want to note. I feel like the recast actress for Donna, I feel like she's way better than the original actress. I don't know if that's a hot take or a very, very cold take, but I thought she was great in this. I thought there was a warmth to her character that was really important for this movie. Fun fact, I tried to mimic the climax of the final scene in Captain Cardboard, my like sophomore year college film. It's a very rough attempt at aping it, but if you can probably kind of see it if you know to look for it. Oh yeah, she's my mother's sister's girl. That's a great line.
She's my mother's sister's girl.
You want to hear about specials? We don't have any. That's another great line.
You want to hear about our specials? We don't have any.
And finally, it is a genuine crime. Cheryl Lee's career never really went anywhere after this. It is both horrific on like an emotional level and a just that doesn't make any sense level. The end.
Don't tell Roger Ebert's corpse that you thought he handled certain themes in this tastefully, because he will disagree with you.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, Roger Ebert, up until maybe like The Straight Story and Mulholland Drive, he just all over David Lynch.
There are scenes that look like those high school pictures you see where some kid has a plastic airplane going across in front of his mother's bedspread, and you're thinking, this cost $45 million? Sure, the movie's well made, but the more I thought about it, the less I liked it.
Well, I think the joke is wearing thin, and I give Wild at Heart 2.5 stars. I'm Roger Ebert.
Tim Sullivan, you're the last one to go. What have you got to say, my friend?
Yeah, I enjoy the movie. I think it's pretty much the perfect way for them to have picked up after those first 2 seasons. Like, if you're expecting a neat, tidy little conclusion from any kind of David Lynch story, I don't think you know David Lynch very well. It was just like a great way to kind of set up the character. Like what Rein was talking about, I think that probably the biggest strength of this movie is like, you kind of hear a little bit about Laura Palmer throughout those first 2 seasons, and this is really where you get to know her as a character.
You'll be calling soon and maybe I won't be around.
Come on, Bobby. Come on.
It's just like a really strong story about trauma too. Just going through all of this stuff with her and all of the people in her life. And that one scene with the drive-by and the screaming, like that's just so intense.
Oh my
and
God.
uncomfortable. And like that's something that David Lynch does a lot. Like there's also that scene in Lost Highway where the tailgater like gets put up at gunpoint.
I want you to get a driver's manual. I want you to study that mother.
Just lots of angry car-related scenes in David Lynch movies.
Like in Blue Velvet, when they're screaming at each other from the front and back seat.
Damn. Next.
But yeah, it's a really great stepping stone from those first two seasons that 25 years later would prepare you for the return. So I will see you after this. Back to you, Joe.
Excellent. And I could hear you this time.
Hey.
So, it's no surprise. I'm pretty much on board with everybody on this. I think that this is a genuine masterpiece of a film. I think it's a wonderful little spin-off. Definitely adds a hell of a lot more context to the show. If you're a fan of the show, as its own little movie, it's a very messed up tale about trauma. There's some mystery and intrigue set throughout. Cheryl Lee is fucking incredible in this. She has like so much material to just kind of cut her teeth on, and that's honestly just something that David Lynch is like great at as a director. It's just he allows his actors and actresses to just like, I don't want to say improvise, but he gives them just like this huge room to just like be creative and just like take risks that most filmmakers normally wouldn't let their actors take. Also, good God, Cheryl Lee's scream in this is ear-piercingly terrifying.
I don't know how she never got casted as like a final girl after this. Like in some other horror movie.
There's definitely other stuff that I can get into, but we're just going to save that for general discussion. But first, we will be right back after these special messages. Coming up after the break, Beavis meets his long-lost dad and kicks him in the nads. We'll be right back.
Are we all our mother sisters now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Annie M. Annie M. I must have been dreaming. It was horrible. We were on Saturdays.
All right. Now that we're back from the commercial break, we're going to get into general discussion. We're saying trivia this time because, man, oh man, there's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to a David Lynch film, because that man leaves his movies up to interpretation like nobody's business. So, who wants to talk about the bus sequence at the very beginning? Just what the fuck is going on there?
I mean, it's a good tone setter for the topsy-turvy anti-Twin Peaks, Dark Dimension, or whatever it's called in Legend of Zelda Dark World.
The town's called Deer Meadow, right?
You know how in like the deleted Apocalypse Now scene, the monkey sampan, they're like, this scene is a visual allegory for the whole movie. It sort of does the whole Lynch thing in like just a little quick scene. You've got the nice suburban like school bus full of kids, and then it looks like they're arresting pimps like 4 feet from the school bus. It's the Blue Velvet thing everyone says about the white picket fence with the bugs down there. It's just a visual version of that.
That's definitely left more up to interpretation than the opening of Blue Velvet. Like, my God, that thing is not even subtle. Which that professor that I took that class with tried to convince everybody it was. And I'm like, did we not watch the same thing? But man, oh man, David Lynch, that man portrays cops how they actually are in this movie compared to the show. Because man, oh man, the cops in Deer Meadow are dicks.
I saw this in some like video essay. I can't take credit for this, but I like how he kind of uses this to contrast Twin Peaks. I know we kind of mentioned this, but it's like the exact opposite of like these people are much more like cynical and just jerks, and then you have the truly like good-natured people of Twin Peaks and how much that like differentiates how things go.
Rein was talking about really good lines from the movie, but he failed to mention. He failed to mention. It's like
Teresa Banks had a ring. Any idea what happened to it?
We got a phone here. It's got a little ring.
We got a phone.
The phone's got a little ring.
It's got a little ring.
I mean, apparently it's hilarious. You saw how much the deputy was laughing.
And that secretary, her laugh, like oh my god.
Go ahead, make yourself at home, because it's going to be a while.
One of the most annoying laughs ever.
The set design of that entire town too, like it feels wrong. Just the giant saw.
The giant
in the
saw!
sheriff's office.
He's named Sheriff Cable, like television, so he's a bastard.
There was like a little news story in the corner. It's like Cable Ben's Steel Bar, where it's like this sheriff. Yeah, the whole backstory for him.
Man, David Lynch really must have hated television.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
he starts the movie off with
They smashed the
breaking
TV.
home with a sledgehammer.
In case you were wondering how that man felt about season 2 and just his experience making Twin Peaks, Rein, you mentioned the set design of like Deer Meadow. The immediate example I'm thinking of, it's like, I think the Double R Diner. It's just like this really nice, well-maintained little diner. And then you go to the diner in Deer Meadow and like...
It's just sad.
It looks like run down and there's like, they're doing whatever the in like the entryway with the flashing light. It looks like it's still under construction. It's fucking weird.
Yeah. This was in the missing pieces very prominently, but was there an establishing shot of the diner in Deer Meadow where you could see the half-crying neon clown? They had a neon sign and it was a crying clown, but only half of its face was lit up.
Oh my god.
Maybe?
That would have been the scariest part of this whole movie.
Don't like clowns, Tony?
I'm fine with them, but the fact that it's half lit up like that feels wrong.
You need a whole clown, not half of one.
This movie had a Geely moment. Like, I only this movie and Geely, the Ben Affleck film, have a scene where a woman unironically says gobble gobble.
A turkey's one of the dumbest birds on earth.
Gobble, gobble, gobble. It's turkey time.
Huh?
Gobble, gobble.
What?
Like, I was surprised to see it. I was just
Oh god, I forgot about that. That's one of the only, like, because I get the vibe all of us are sort of on Lynch's wavelength with his sort of, like, his sense of humor. That's probably one of the only moments where, like, I don't know if that joke worked. I couldn't tell if, like, that was supposed to be funny, if I'm supposed to, because it was a tonal whiplash, not the most effective.
She's like crying while she says it.
Yeah, gobble gobble.
Gobble gobble.
Yeah.
You're not a turkey. Turkeys are stupid as gobble gobble.
So, David Bowie shows up in this movie briefly.
I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. It was a dream. We lived inside a dream.
What? Oh, Mr. Jeffries! Oh, the shit come out of my ass.
When I saw that for the first time, my heart stopped. I was like, how is this happening?
They're a match made in heaven. It's too bad this is so brief in the theatrical cut.
He was on the 1991 Tin Machine tour, so they only had like 4 or 5 days to film his shit.
Damn it, Tin Machine back at it again, being not great.
Yeah. Man, oh man, talk about a scene that just feels weird and out of place without the return.
It feels like a parody of like what someone who thinks David Lynch is like. This caricature of David Lynch just being weird for the sake of weird and nonsensical and abstract for the sake of it. Like if they like went in and took a scene from one of his movies and then just like re-edited it to make it look more like how they imagine his stuff being. This is like what the end result I feel like would be. Where it's just like, oh, we don't have time. We have to cut corners for the runtime. I'll just put phases over in and add in another.
Let's put
scene.
a monkey in there.
Yeah.
Put in Happy Gilmore's grandma, and we'll just go from there.
That's who that is.
I didn't realize
I was
that at
like,
all. I
she
didn't
looks
pick up
so
on that.
familiar.
So this is probably the most like out of character Cooper has ever felt. When you take the show into comparison, he seems a lot more like serious and less chipper this whole run.
He seems scared the whole time.
Lately, I've been filled with the knowledge that the killer will strike again. But because it is just a feeling, I am powerless to stop it. That was tuna fish sandwich on whole wheat, slice of cherry pie, and a cup of coffee. Damn good food.
He seems to know something is up.
What was it? His partner's like, oh, well, let's put it in for the record. Who's the next murder victim? What color's her hair? I just imagine them walking up to Twin Peaks, checking it off like it's bingo or something. But just like, damn, wow, Cooper.
You really are psychic.
He was worried about today because of the dream he told him about.
It's too bad we didn't get the original opening with him, where he's like
talking to Diane over in the other half of the frame behind a wall.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
What this movie needed was him with food in his mouth during a take, so that the llama would look in his face. The only reason they were able to get that shot is because he had to put food in his mouth, and the llama would like sniff the food.
I like the sound mixing in this film. It was kind of it did the Christopher Nolan thing, but on purpose. And like the scenes in the club where like they would really drown out the mix on purpose. Like the dynamic range is the thing that like usually just music people appreciate, because there's also the part I think where Leland's like looking at a porno like there are parts where people really whisper really quietly, and then there's parts where you can barely hear what people say. It's nice to see people like using all the different levels of volume in a film to artistic effect.
Yeah, I did appreciate like the way they put like subtitles in the club scenes, because like you have movies like Social Network where they will intentionally make like the dialogue inaudible and not give you anything. Like the point is that it's, but you know, help us out a little bit. But Twin Peaks is able to extend the olive branch a little bit.
It's either the VHS or the DVD release of Fire Walk With Me, where like you can actually hear them talking, and like the music is just at like a normal volume. It's terrible.
Trash.
Damn. That's the version what's his face saw?
Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert. That's the version he saw.
That's why he hated it.
Yeah, that's why it's like, oh, this is garbage. I really think Leland and his actor, I think they're also a really integral part to like how great this movie is.
Ray Wise.
He really is great at making like whiplash between like despising this person and just like, you know, just feeling horrible for him. Just like in an instant, all with his eyes, like someone said, but I'm gonna say and copy them.
But not a one of us is going to start eating until Laura washes her hands. Wash your hands!
Ray Wise has to walk like this very interesting tightrope the entire film of just like, you feel bad for the guy because the poor guy's possessed by Bob, but at the same time, he's possessed by Bob.
When I rewatched it last night, the scene, it's after that scene where he's like, Laura, you didn't wash your hands.
Yeah.
That scene, is almost like it makes my body tense up so bad, and I don't know why. But after that, whenever he's like in the bedroom and you see him like go from being Bob to being himself, and then he goes and apologizes to Laura, for some reason, that's never made me like cry before. But I was like, I don't know, it just hit me different. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, it's just crazy when you know what's going to happen. Like, that hits so much harder.
My father killed me.
It's probably one of the top 5 most emotional scenes for me in the movie. Also, it's been a couple years since I've seen this show, so I could be wrong. If I recall, like, when we get a little bit of Leland's backstory, it sounds like almost like what's going on with Laura, like, you could interpret like is he had to deal with himself. Because didn't he have to deal with Bob, like, as early as his childhood? I could be wrong. I could be, but I thought I remember that being a thing.
I don't remember, personally.
This man, I know him.
How do you know him, Leland?
He used to flick matches at me. He'd say,
You want to play with fire, little boy?
The only thing that they bring up is that Laura's been dealing with Bob since she was 12.
Speaking of both those characters, that finale, we got to talk about the finale. Talk about a scene that I genuinely did not want to have happen, but I knew it had to happen. It's like, because man, oh man, you really get to know and care about Laura Palmer, and then just David Lynch just has to be like, this is the way, we got to do this. And it feels very operatic, the finale of this. It's like so just like grand and epic is a weird way to describe this, but like it feels like a gigantic event. And I mean, if you've watched the show, it's the catalyst of the show, so of course it's like supposed to be this grand moment, but man, oh man, I did not want it to happen.
And like something that I just realized on my rewatch was that, because I thought about the scene where it's Leland knocks Jock out and Leo goes back into the cabin to like get his stuff. And Laura goes, Leo, can you untie me? And instead of doing it, because he, totally is capable of doing it, and there's no reason for him to keep her there. Like, he was leaving. Like, it was so silly. And he just goes, shut up. Like, that made me think. I realized, like, Laura's relationships to everyone in this movie is that every single man that she encounters, even if they're the ones that, like, care about her, like Harold or James or Bobby, they either idolize her or abuse her in some way. But when you look at like Donna, you see that she like actually cares about her. And even when she finds out that she's basically like selling herself to all these old guys, she cares enough, but not to be like, you're a bad person for doing that. She's like, no, you're better than that. You don't have to do that.
Tony's analysis of what happened to Laura is 100% spot on, a great way to describe it. It's just like kind of like nightmare world for this specific woman. This movie was really big in Japan. It wasn't big over here. And I hope someday someone will explain to me why this resonated so deeply with Japanese women. They saw something in Laura where they're like, it's me. It's literally me, and just lined up on the block to see this movie.
Laura Palmer and Twin Peaks may be dead in the U.S., but they're alive and well in Japan. It's expected to be one of the top 10 movies in Japan for '92.
She just like me for real.
Which just makes me feel terrible for Japanese women in 1992. What the is happening?
Oh man, that raises a lot of questions.
Austin, there was a movie in 1992 called Midori Shoujo Tsubaki.
Oh, no! We don't bring that up!
We're gonna move on over to final thoughts. Mr. Rein Conversi, do you have any final thoughts on Twin Peaks? Fire Walk With Me.
Joe, I agreed to do this podcast because you told me I would finally get my 2x4.
If it was 2x4, it wouldn't fit anything. You couldn't build a decent doghouse with it.
It's too small. I want a 2x4.
Where is it?
It's in the mail.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
All is forgiven.
I drew a little face on it because I knew you like Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Movie good. Movie great. Well, also one of my favorites. The end.
All right. Mr. Tim M. Sullivan, final thoughts.
Movie.
Tony, final thoughts.
Yeah, this movie basically makes me feel every emotion that is humanly possible, and it's just amazing. I almost didn't think that a movie could make me feel comforted, but also like insanely just emotionally numb. But this movie does that, and it's one of my favorites. Also, last night was the first time that I have seen this since Julie Cruz's passing. So the minute she popped up on screen, I burst into tears.
Oh, I was crying too. Not even just because she had passed, just because, God, that music is so damn emotional. But like having that information also like adds to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Austin, final thoughts, my guy. You look sad.
All the video essays that I ever saw made me worried that Twin Peaks was going to be more like those old David Lynch short films than the entertaining Jodorowsky soap opera that it actually is. I'm starting to get why people love this show. Even beyond the dense network of like symbols and riddles, it's just great art.
Hell yeah. All right, my final thoughts on Twin Peaks are I love it. It's an absolute emotional roller coaster where you get some laughs, you get some thrills, and you get some tears. It is a very heavy film in terms of emotion. It's a very well-crafted film. If you've not seen it, like I said, watch the show first. I think watching the show would greatly be beneficial to it, but if you don't, whatever. I still think you'd probably get a good movie out of it. You'd probably just spoil the show a bit for you. Solid film. And that's where we're going to wrap up our little podcast on Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Before I do the outro, I forgot to do this on the bonus cast. Toni, do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Yes, I'll plug my TikTok, which is introducing_Toni, and that has my Linktree, which has my YouTube channel linked up to it, where you can watch my short films and just kind of keep up to date with all the silly little things I'm working on. And that's all I'll plug, really.
Hell yeah. Go give her some support. We'll have links in the description. While you're down over by the description, leave a comment. Have you seen the show Twin Peaks? What are your thoughts on Fire Walk with Me? Is there no tomorrow? I don't know. Be sure to leave a like so we know how much you like us. Hit the subscribe button so we know how much you love us, and hit the bell icon so that you can get updates on when we upload new videos and fun stuff like that. We have a Twitch page. We'll stream every so often. Go follow us there. We have a Patreon account. We would like to try and turn this into a job, so going there and supporting us on Patreon would be super beneficial. We're hoping to get more tiers in at some point, but one of them is if you can get your name in the credits. If you donate X amount of money, check out our podcast on Spotify and all the fun podcast platforms. We're on pretty much everything. Stay tuned for next week's podcast, where
give him a warm hayride welcome to Mr. Elvis Presley.
Should be a really fun and potentially very educational podcast. But until then, we'll just leave you off here, and we'll see you in the future.
Who killed Hannibal?
Who do you think that is there?
Gracias,